Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I'm doing my final polling check-in for the 2024 United States Senate map, and I'm going to start by going over the states that we know are already safe and then going into the states that are likely before getting into the really close competitive states. So for starters, Republicans start off with 47 Senate seats that I'm very confident Republicans are going to win. Democrats start out with 41 seats we're very confident that they are going to win. And before we get on to the battleground states, there are a few Senate races we expect to go a certain way, but I want to discuss about a little bit more in depth. Starting with the state of New Mexico. New Mexico, this is a Democratic incumbent senator running for re-election. There hasn't been too many polling done except for one recent poll, which has the Democratic incumbent up by 9. The 9.4%, the average in the RCP, is actually under the 15% threshold to be considered a safe race, so I need to put the state of New Mexico, based on the polling average, into the likely Democratic column. Not really much of a big deal there, so I fully expect this race to be won by the Democrat, but still just a question of the margin of victory in New Mexico. Now in the state of Maryland, this is the Democratic candidate Angela Also Brooks going up against Republican challenger former Governor Larry Hogan. Also Brooks' lead is now 11.3%. Doing the final polling check-in, this is 11.3%. This is under 15, but over 5. Maryland would also go into the likely Democratic column. Now we're getting into the states that are looking a little bit more competitive, and I'm going to start with the state of Nebraska because Nebraska really hasn't had too much polling data be done. The last poll was October 21st to October 28th that showed the Republican incumbent leading by 7 points. The average of 7 plus 2 would be about 4.5. So this would be a lean Republican lead right now, but this is a potentially very close race to watch for on election night, and this will give you an idea at how the Senate may be looking in this election. So this is a very, very close one to watch. Nebraska goes into the lean Republican column. So now Republicans have 48, Democrats have 43. Now we're getting into the states that we know are the most competitive ones to watch for. Starting with the state of Florida, where Republican Rick Scott is facing up against Democratic challenger Debbie Mercarsel-Powell. This is a race that's closer than many expected, where Scott is currently leading by 4.8 in the RCP polling average, just a hair under the 5% threshold to be a likely Republican state. So at 4%, that would 4.8%, that would be a lean Republican state. Florida Atlantic University's poll has Scott plus 4. The Hill Emerson has Scott plus 4. And University of Northern Florida has Scott plus 3. And the trend across the month of October has seemed to be Scott around that 4 to 3% threshold. So with that, the state of Florida, Rick Scott goes into the lean Republican column. We're going to have to wait and see on election night how that one ends up going. Republicans now have 49 Senate seats. Democrats have 43. Next, we go to the state of Texas with Senator Ted Cruz facing up against Democratic challenger Colin Allred. This is a 4.1% race right now in the RCP average. A Senegal, our internal poll, had Cruz plus 4. New York Times had Cruz plus 4. Rasmussen, Cruz plus 4. The Hill Emerson, Cruz plus 1. And University of Texas, back from early October, had Cruz plus 7. Marist had Cruz plus 5. The consensus seems to be around that Cruz plus 4, plus 5 margin of victory. That would put the state of Texas into the lean Republican column. Now we're going to go to the state of Arizona. This is where the outgoing Senator Kyrsten Sinema is not running for re-election. The two candidates are Democratic candidate Ruben Gallego and Republican challenger Kari Lake. Every poll, and the most recent ones, except for Atlas Intel, which does have Kari Lake leading 49 to 48, every other poll has Gallego leading, and the average right now is 49.3 to 45.4. It is worth noting the final poll from Atlas Intel does have Lake ahead, so maybe there's a late-breaking trend in Arizona we are unaware of, but all the data so far suggests Ruben Gallego is going to win, and the 3.9% average would put it as a lean Democratic. Take note of that poll, but I think the consensus is still Gallego is going to win the Senate race and in a lean Democratic margin. So Arizona goes lean Democratic, 54 for the Democrats, 50 for the Republicans. Now we're going to go to the state of Nevada, where Democratic incumbent Jackie Rosen is facing up against Republican Sam Brown. And this is an interesting race where it's a 4.3% lead for Jackie Rosen right now. Brown's been going up in the polls from 40% towards the end of September, to the end of October, beginning in November. Brown's up to 44%. The Democratic incumbent still has been holding steady around 48% for the last few weeks now. And barring one poll from Susquehanna, which has it at 46-47, Brown has not broken over 45% of the vote aside from that one poll. Every other poll has Rosen leading Brown by a pretty significant margin, 2 points at the smallest. It looks like more likely than not this race will be a lean Democratic win for Jackie Rosen. Again, that +1 for Brown could be a sign of things to come, but it's looking like right now it's more likely than not Rosen's going to win this race, and by a lean Democratic margin. Nevada goes as lean Democratic. Now we're looking at the state of Montana. This is Democratic incumbent Senator Jon Tester facing up against Republican challenger Tim Sheehy. Sheehy right now is definitely favored to win this race. The Hill Emerson poll has Sheehy at 50, Tester at 46. That is the closest poll we've seen in a while. The RCP average does have Tim Sheehy up 6.5% over Tester at 51 to 44.5. That 6.5% would put Montana into the likely Republican column, over 5% of the vote. Republicans now have 51 Senate seats. Democrats have 45. Next, we're going to the state of Wisconsin. This is Democratic incumbent Senator Tammy Baldwin facing off against Republican Eric Hovde. It is a 0.9% lead for Tammy Baldwin over Hovde right now. Very, very close race, but the margins have actually gone up following the Marist poll, which has Baldwin at 51, Hovde at 48. The Atlas Intel poll had this race as a tie. American Greatness had Baldwin +2. Rasmussen had this a tie. Insider Advantage from a few days ago had Hovde +1. CNN and USA Today have Baldwin +2. Very, very close race. Truly can go either way. Lots of undecided vote left. 48.5, 47.6. There's definitely enough undecided vote to go either way in this race. At 0.9%, that would put Wisconsin into the tilt Democratic column. Very close race. Fascinating race unfolding in Wisconsin. Now to the state of Michigan. This is a retiring Democratic incumbent senator. And we actually just had a poll come out as of the second I'm recording this video, so that's interesting. Democratic candidate Lisa Slotkin has 48.1%. Republican Mike Rogers has 45.2% in the RCP average. This has kind of been a similar story to Nevada, where Slotkin's been running anywhere between 48% to 50%, depending on the poll or so. And most of them, she's been leading. Mike Rogers, aside from one poll where he hit 49, he's been averaging around 46% or lower. It's not likely to win when you're not getting more than 46% in the polls. Slotkin leading by 2.9% in the RCP average. That would be a lean Democratic lead, and the polling data so far suggests Slotkin is cruising for at least a 3% victory come election night in the Michigan Senate race. Michigan goes into the lean Democratic column. Now looking at the state of Ohio, Democratic incumbent Senator Sherrod Brown up against Republican Bernie Moreno. This is a 1-point race right now in the RCP average. There have not been any new polls since the last time I recorded this video. 48 to 47 in the Trafalgar poll. Brown is up 1. Bowling Green, YouGov has Brown +2. Rasmussen has Moreno +1. Washington Post, Brown +1. And Marist, Brown +2. Very, very close race. A 1-point lead for Sherrod Brown over Bernie Moreno. Super, super close. Lots of undecided vote remaining here as well. At least 6 to 7% of the vote is still left outstanding after adding these two numbers up. Very, very close. Certainly one of the closest in the United States. Brown +1 does put Ohio narrowly into the tilt Democratic column, but certainly a very, very close one happening in Ohio and one to watch for on election night. And finally, we have the state of Pennsylvania. Very, very close on the presidential side. The Senate race also very competitive. Democratic incumbent Senator Bob Casey has a lead over Republican challenger Dave McCormick. Casey has 48.2%. McCormick has 45.8%. A few recent polls coming out in the last few days. USA Today has Casey leading by 3. Atlas Intel has Casey leading by 3. And Marist has Casey leading by 2. Washington Post, Casey +3. Rasmussen and Insider do have it as a tied race. Fox is Casey +2. Quinnipiac, Casey +3. CNN, Casey +3. CBS, Casey +6. There seems to be a lot of consensus right now that Bob Casey is leading this race by about 2 to 3 percentage points, more so on the side of a 3-point margin of victory. And the polling average right now has Casey leading by 2.4%. And as I mentioned in the prior video I did about this a few days ago on the Senate, it seemed that Casey was peaking at the right time, right before Election Day, and that continued in this video. At 2.4%, that would put Pennsylvania into the lean Democratic column. So based on the latest polls going into Election Day, the final polling check-in, Democrats are projected to win 49 Senate seats. Republicans are projected to win 51, giving the Republicans a narrow majority in the U.S. Senate. Depending on how the presidential election goes, Republicans either will have a 1-seat majority in the U.S. Senate, or if Donald Trump and J.D. Vance win, the tiebreaker goes to the Republicans, so Republicans would technically have a 2-seat advantage. But of course, that depends on how the presidential race goes. This is a very, very fascinating Senate elections, very, very close. Lots of close races in Florida, Texas, Arizona, Nevada, Montana, Nebraska, surprisingly, Wisconsin, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania. These are all very, very close races, and I can't wait to watch on election night to see how these unfold, because the polls certainly showing a very, very tight races in all of them. In the meantime, that'll do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to give this video a like, click subscribe, share it with your friends and family, and I hope to see you in a future video. That will do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to give it a like. And if you really liked it, please remember to click the subscribe button. And make sure you turn post notifications on so you always get notified when I post a new video. That way you never miss one. Also, please remember to share this video with your friends and family if you really, really, really like the video. And remember to stay tuned because I'll be posting at least one video every single day leading up until election day, so I'd really appreciate it if you keep coming back and watching those videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in a future video.